welcome to another episode where I get to speak to incredible people from around the world. And can I just say, wow, I don't know what happened there. Well, you're probably wondering what I'm talking about. Well, just before we went live, my next guest, Darren Galvin, who is a genius when it comes to coding and the world of AI, was just talking to me about ChatGPT and how to create images using AI in a matter of seconds. And we just created some for some PowerPoints that I'm about to do. But if we get a chance, we're going to touch upon that because there's a whole other thing I want to talk about with Darren. Now, we talk about human-centered leadership an awful lot. You know, it's one of my passions, emotionally intelligent leaders and emotionally intelligent cultures. Now, leadership can be a very, very lonely place sometimes. And, the beauty of human-centered organizations and environments is that we also realize that every single person is different. That is who we are. Human beings are, by their very nature, complex. So people will be dealing with all sorts of issues, and mental well-being and mental health is right at the forefront of who we need to be as organizations and as leaders. I wanted to bring somebody on who I know is real, he's authentic, and he's happy to talk about his journey. So I want to welcome my good friend, Darren Galvin, to the podcast today. Darren, thanks very much for being here, first and foremost. But I want people to get a sense of your journey. Now, we've only got like 30 minutes, right? So what I want to try and do is somehow for you to encapsulate this incredible journey that you've been on for the last 4 or 5 years that I've known you. Can you do that in 4 or 5 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. I can. And just before I do that, I just think it's incredible how one of the topics I want to talk about is how you take things, right? So I've had probably 2 indirect insults, if I wanted to call them indirect insults, so far already been on the show. And I'll tell you why that is how I take it, right? So before I even got out, honestly, I've never seen anything like this. This is AI in its making, right? There's a thing that sets the camera up, right? And it turns around and says to me, camera...
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because Darren told me this and I chuckled and I can't stop laughing about it.
Checking camera, checking audio, checking hair. But never mind did it say hair, it just crossed the word out because I haven't got any hair. I mean,
you didn't tell me that. You didn't say it crossed...
It'd be a community. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is great. But this is what it's about, right? So one of the things I'm going to talk about today, and I think that's important, is to reflect on how we take things, because, yes, I'm bored. I don't care that I'm bored. I really genuinely have no issue with it whatsoever. But there was a time when I was younger when I would have done. So I guess, obviously on a 30-minute podcast, I'm not going to go all the way back to my childhood. What I'll do is I'll go back to probably just where there's been a few knocks, where we got introduced to each other, I think would be a good place. So when I first encountered you, I think I've been to one of your shows actually, and we've become low-level friends and acquaintances. Yeah. It was a case of, if you ever need any help, just reach out, mate. I'm here for you. So I was like, okay, great. And I didn't really have much engagement with you afterwards. A bit of social media engagement, as you do. And then just everything, my whole world went to pots. And I lost my marriage, lost my home, had to move out, lived in this grotty old hole of a place that was like, there was mice in the kitchen, and I didn't even want to use the kitchen. I made my own little kitchen in the place, and I was feeling like so sorry for myself. It was unbelievable. I was like, talking to myself with all these negative thoughts. I know that now, I didn't back then. I was crying my eyes out. I was like, I just didn't want to be there anymore. And I was like, I know this has got to stop or I'm going to lose everything. I'm a father of 5. I wasn't father of 5 back then, but I'm a father of 5 now. And those kids are important to me, and I didn't want to be, leaving them behind. And that's really how far things had gone for me, that I just can't cope. So I picked up the phone to you, and said, remember you said, reach out if you need any help. I need help. And I was crying my eyes out like you've never known. And it was funny because I think, in a way, I felt like you told me off a little bit because you kept telling me that everything I was saying was talking negative. And it was really interesting because I got to understand that. And again, let's fast forward because we've had loads of engagements since then. I don't want to, obviously spend half an hour just talking about the time we connected. We could do that. We've spent many half an hours together. But what I would say is from there on then, obviously, I started reshaping my life. I started putting ideas on a napkin as to what I wanted to do. Me and Danny, who was my business partner at the time, who we decided, right, okay, we know what we want to do. We had loads of ideas. Which ones do we want to go after? And I got a fuel, I got energy, I got something back in me that was not going to let me be defeated. I'd come to your events, your Ignite Your Inner Potential events. I'd met some amazing people. I just started feeling like a journey was starting to take off. And within a couple of months, I decided, right, sod it, I'm going to do it. And I went all in. Oh no, I'd already gone all in on my credit cards and put all my
I remember.
money in there. That's the reason why I was crying my eyes out. But I'd already gone all in on tech, and I thought, no, I'm going to finish it. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. So anyway, I built this, what I was calling the machine that builds apps. I could see the future. I could see that, everyone thought I was crazy, but I said, honestly, no one's going to be coding apps or websites in the future. AI is going to be doing it 100%. So I want to be on that journey. So hired a developer, created this machine that builds apps, got a load of clients on, got investment, £250,000 from crowdfunding, got a 7.1 million valuation, all within a year. It was like flying, amazing, great. And it went all right, and it carried on going all right, but cracks started to form. And it's unfortunately, it led to the point where coming into our fourth year, I just couldn't sustain it anymore. I had to call it a day, and crashed and burned, bankrupt, everything, lost everything. And I think the worst part was, as well, is it wasn't just, not many people know this, but I'm happy to share, is that it wasn't just the company that went, it was me that went as well. And the reason why was because I secured, with personal guarantees, a lot of loans to the company to keep it afloat, to make sure that everything was going to get it to the next level. And I had belief that we were going to do that. But then, naturally, the second the company's struggling and can't afford to pay those loans, they came after me. So therefore, I'm now in a situation where I've got nothing, literally nothing, and crashed and burned. And I share it with you. And the reason why I go back to the previous part was because it's not the first time I've crashed and burned. And I quite often feel like a failure, because I'm like, honestly, why do I keep crashing and burning? Why can't I just go on and get what I want? But actually, I've realised that it's part of my journey, and I'm okay with it, because I don't believe it's going to keep happening in this way, and I'm certainly not going to have it happen in this way again. But what it's taught me is that this crash and burn obviously was going to happen for whatever reason. But the one I had before, which I thought was devastating, wasn't actually that bad, really, when you look at it. It was certainly not as traumatic as this one, but it helped me to deal with this one. So this is why I love having these conversations with you, Kul, because I realised that the power of what you did with me back a few years ago, by giving me all these tools and techniques to work with, enabled me not to really crash and burn this time, mentally. I've had my falls, and I'll talk about them, and it's not been an easy ride this year in particular, but you know what? I'm alive.
Yeah, and listening to your story, Darren, the one word that continuously comes into my mind is the word resilience, emotional resilience. And I'm always inspired by seeing resilient people, people who get knocked down, get up again and keep walking forward, get knocked down again and keep walking forward. And I've seen you at your very lowest, when we first met, living in that dingy little flat that you described to me. Our first phone call was you in tears, talking about, how you'd put everything on a credit card, etc., to get this business off the ground. And then just within the space of a few years, I saw this meteoric rise where you got this company valued at £7 million, I think it was at the time. And then I saw you, struggling with the challenges that rapid expansion caused for you, but also how people let you down, and it led to the ultimate bankruptcy. But one thing that I've really admired is that you've managed to keep your sanity and your control over your own emotions, and understand that only you can carve your own path. Now, there's going to be many leaders listening to this podcast. That's what the podcast is designed for. And what I take away from your story is that because we're all very, very complex beings as human beings, we're all very complex. We all have issues going on. We all have lives outside of our job, or we may be running businesses where we have that extreme pressure. We know what it's like to be an entrepreneur, right? there's this whole mix going on with people. What is it that you think? Firstly, what do you think are the best coping mechanisms if you are going through those tough times? And secondly, what can organizations or leaders do with their people who they suspect or feel might be going through those times?
Yeah, so it's such a great point, isn't it? That the surrounding circumstances that are going on in your life can have a huge impact on your working circumstances, and your working circumstances can have a huge impact on relationships. And it's one of the reasons why a lot of senior leaders and some lose relationships because they haven't communicated properly, and likewise the other way around. It can be quite difficult. I think. For me, it's really hard to just pinpoint 1, 2, 3 things, right? Because it's just been a whirlwind. And I think that's the important part, is to recognize when that whirlwind is getting too strong.
Yes.
And to be able to take the tools and techniques to get out of it. Because that's how it's felt like for me. And I mentioned this on a live video that we had, but I talk about the feeling like I was in a box, but let's expand on that and say, well, again, when you first start on your journey, whether that be you've just got the job or you've just opened a business or whatever, everything's clear. It's like you can see around you. It feels great. It feels amazing. And then, like, as you go through this, you get people around you and you get people supporting you, and you as a leader then have to lead them in the right direction. And sometimes it can literally be like leading them towards a storm. And okay, that's okay, because it's difficult and challenging. But when that storm is like, grabbing people, pulling things away from you and causing you challenges, etc., well, the sensible thing would be to take a step back. I don't feel that that's something that I've managed to do very well as a leader. That's where I've let myself down, is that I've not been able to take a step back and look bigger picture. All I've had to do is deal with the day to day. And one of the reasons I feel that, and I never want to be in this position again, is that the financial challenges are one of the most. It's like you get pushed towards the whirlwind when you've got financial challenges, and you'll still keep going even if you know that it's not the right thing to do. You'll still have to keep pushing forward. And I think that, when we talk about leaders and how their people will be affected, okay, let's give an example. So as a leader, you've got a financial challenge, whether that be your business is financially challenged or whether that be your budgets are short or whatever. And someone's in your team and they're coming to you with a challenge or a problem, you can't see it and you don't want to see it. So therefore, this is what I'm saying about, like, you're being pulled in and sucked in, and you can't do these things around you. Now, I use that as an example of, from a, HR employment point of view, whatever, but it's the same thing as one of the reasons I think our downfall was because we were working on tech that was growing older than the tech was going on the outside. I only learnt that, like, as we're further in and going, there's stuff that's more advanced than us and I can't keep up. I just cannot get the tech to this level. Main reason, I couldn't get the right people, couldn't get the right coders, I couldn't get the right team to make that happen. But I wanted all this stuff to happen myself. So I think that when you've got those pressures, now for me, it was like, if I had just taken a step back from that whirlwind and been able to read some news articles, like spend even a couple of hours a day following YouTube videos on advancements in AI and technology and the code and, what code's getting old, I could have had control.
What we're essentially talking about is R&D, isn't it? Research and development, where you can keep a weather eye on and do some environmental scanning and to understand what's coming down further down the path. So is that something that the leader of the organization needs to be doing, or is that something in hindsight that perhaps you could have got somebody else doing from within your team and reporting to you?
I do think it's the leader 100%. Yeah. And the reason why I say is, so just going back to where I was with the financial challenges, get that sorted first, because while they're there, you can't do any of this. And I think, there's so many startup businesses and all that, they're starting and, they live in hand to mouth, and I've done it, and it's difficult, and you just literally, you've got salaries coming out of everywhere and you don't know how you're going to meet them. You cannot, in my opinion, build a business like that. And I know people say, you have to start up from the ground up and build it. But It just doesn't work because it doesn't allow you to step out. It doesn't give you that opportunity. And no, I don't think you should get other people doing it for you. I think you should utilize other people. So you should very much consume other people's content because, like I'm at the moment, where the way I've just turned into a complete geek. Like the way I looked at it was, if I can't find the right people, I'm just going to do it myself. Okay. Now, a lot of leaders would say, oh, no, you're going down the route of not delegating. No, there's a difference with this, right? Is the fact that I know how much I was paying developers to do a job that I necessarily, that I felt that I could got done differently or better or whatever, however, politically correct, I want to put that right now. But the way I look at this is going, well, actually, I can just do that. I'm going to learn. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to upskill myself, and I'm going to go and take that advice and do that. Now, I do that by consuming lots of information, by doing lots of courses. I've got 2 Udemy courses on at the same time. I watch probably hundreds of hours of videos of AI and technology because I'm allowed to do that now, because I've lost everything, crashed and burned anyway, and I'm actually, on and off, stress, sick, depression. We can talk about that later, but it's there and it exists. So I'm managing this, and I'm saying this year I'm focusing just nothing but my mental health. That's it. Physical, mental health. Well, mental health, physical health later on. I can't bother really yet, but mental health first. But anyway, so what that says to me is that no, as a leader, you need to go finding that information yourself, because only you really know the ideas. If you're a leader for a reason, right? So you'll have ideas and you'll have thoughts. So when you're reading something, you'll go, okay, that actually doesn't apply to me, but I could make that apply to me. I could change that way of thinking. Like we had a bit of a conversation about how to make AI work in your business. Like I didn't read how to make AI work in Cole's business. I learned about AI and then went, oh, actually, this could work for you. So as a leader, I think, one, yes, the financial challenges not need to be there, but not everybody's in business that's listening to this. Some are corporates with, obviously leadership teams. So please take my words and hear me when I say that if you're a leader and you're setting those budgets for people, don't make it just about those budgets. Because if these people, and I say budgets, targets, whatever it might be, whatever is putting them under enormous pressure is pulling them towards the whirlwind, and they can't do what they really need to do.
So what you're essentially saying is don't just rely as an organization or a team or a leader on the metrics around performance and hold people to that. What else is it what else is it that leaders and organizations need to bring in then to get the very best from their people, do you think?
So on the back of that is, look, I understand metrics are important. I totally understand that. I'm not naive. I understand it. But what I want people to understand is that you can get so much more out of individuals like me. So if I was in your organization, I would probably be your worst employee because I'm not that type of person. I'm very creative, and I like to do things, to come up with concepts, ideas, to turn things around and make things.
Well, I'm
different.
not sure if that makes you the worst employee. If that's your skill set.
Andrew's listening, right? Because I'm not going to just sit there and you give me a textbook and go, right, this is what you've got to do, hit this metric. It's never going to happen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come to you and I'm going to say, actually, and this is what I really think leaders need to listen to, is I'm going to say, look, I'm totally forgetting this, but what I'm really aware of is that outside right now, like, again, let's talk AI, right? AI. It's moving every single day. And the amount of organisations that just don't have a clue because their focus is on what they've got is their book that they generated 5 years ago of these are the metrics that we've got to do. It's our 5-year plan. Honestly, 3-year, 5-year plans, as far as I'm concerned, I think they're ridiculous right now. And I know that's going to go.
No, I agree with you. I think we are, Darren. We're living in a massively and rapidly and acceleratingly changing world. We are.
Exactly.
And I think particularly the last 3 years have seen that rate of change accelerate as time goes on. And, the world that we're in right now is completely different to the world that we were in pre-2020. So yes, I think agility, adaptability, evolution has to be something that every single organizational leader needs to grasp hold of. And evolution is not that slow-paced evolution that we're used to. This is quite fast-paced evolution. And you're talking about evolving. Let's just get into the AI debate. So you're talking about this evolution that's going to be now accelerated through the concept of AI. AI is something that we've been talking about for at least the last couple of years. I know the word AI or the phrase AI has been touted quite a bit, but I think it's now showing itself a lot more. I think the recent sort of ChatGPT app, or whatever you want to call it, or website, or I'm not entirely sure what you would call it. But I've used ChatGPT, and it is incredible in the power. But you're in that world, and you know what else is coming down the pathway. So just talk to us about AI and how AI might affect organizations and leaders.
So I'm gonna talk like a complete and utter scaremonger, and I'm gonna say it as I believe it's gonna be. Okay, I believe that AI is advancing so fast. And by the way, look, I know AI has been around since the 50s, whatever. But what you have to consider is there was no data. We didn't have the data that we had. We did not have the processing power that we had in order to be able to make things happen that are happening now. Right? You name any job to me right now, and I guarantee you that AI can, if not completely replace it, will take 80% of it out. Okay, that leaves a whole world of people that are in a situation where working isn't an option, right? So look at this, right? You get people coming out of school unqualified like me. Every single job that I did can be replaced by AI robots. There's no job for me, absolutely nothing whatsoever. You get people coming out of school that go into universities. They go to universities and they go, oh yeah, I'll go and work in Mackey's, as we call it here in Liverpool, McDonald's, but there's no McDonald's. I don't know if you know this already, but McDonald's is open. They're fully autonomous restaurant already. There's no people. It's cooking food. It's serving food, right? So the way to look at this is go, right, okay, so that's gone. Well, you've got all over the country, all over the world, you've got robots serving food. You've got robots opening doors for people. You've got robots that are already in healthcare who are looking after the elderly. There's not a single thing that a human can do better than a robot, and that's a fact, right? And what we're getting to the point is, in terms of knowledge-wise, that's a fact. So every human, what they're planning to do is obviously robots are going to be more powerful than any human. So while we sit there and in our lifetime learn loads of stuff, it's pointless because this robot knows all this stuff. And the education system is another one I bleat on around about because, we're still learning about King Henry VIII. Like, what's the point in that when all you need to do is just ask the AI what King Henry VIII is and give me 10 facts about it, and great. And if you really want to study it further, then do. So we've got this seriously wrong, and businesses have got this wrong as well, because not everybody, but some people don't even look at it. And what I'm hearing, and I promise you this, right, and I've said this to you, Cole, because I'm hearing it all the time, and I see it, and obviously I'm not, a coach in this area or whatever, but what I do know is that from a perspective of denial, it's easy to turn around and go, okay, I'm going to go on ChatGPT. So you're a coach, right? Coaching, it's an industry that's going to have some threats along the way, okay? But we've talked about how you can tweak that to actually make it you're a better coach. But anyway, so you're a coach, you turn around and go, blah, 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 ask it a question. Nah, it doesn't know the answer. Rubbish, that AI. You go into denial, right? The reason why you're going into denial is because you don't want to know what it can do. So I say suspend all of your thinking about what it can do. Think about your competitors having this product in their hands and you not, okay? Because remember the Nokia mobile phone? I remember the old brick Nokia mobile phone. In fact, I think I've got one here, somewhere in a drawer. Here, look. This is one of the newer versions, right? Remember this, yeah? And remember we used to type out messages, A, C, C, we used to play snakes on this thing, and we thought it was amazing, and we were like, it's all right, it's not brilliant, but it's... Now look at what we've got. Within a couple of years, it flew, okay? So when I talk about AI, I talk about the future of AI. I know what's coming. I see it already coming. And when I say I sound crazy, I do sound crazy, because a lot of people go, yeah, but we've adapted to technology. Like, we understand televisions came out, cars came out, planes came out. I'm sorry, but this isn't technological evolution.
Okay, I want to drop a bit of a challenge in here. We've got like 5 minutes left of this, and bear in mind this is called the Human-Centered Leadership Podcast. So I want to humanize what we're talking about here. The fact of the matter is, and yes, I saw something a year or two ago that talked about the eventual extinction of human beings on this planet. And they're saying, in about 20 to 30 years, human beings will be extinct. And after I got over my shock, I read further, and what they were saying was that it's not so much as they'll be physically extinct, it'll be that their ability to think freely will be extinct because AI will be that level of powerful. Okay, so let's accept that. The fact, however, remains that human beings will still be on this planet, human beings will still be going to work, human beings will still be inside organizations. So I guess the real challenge is for these new leaders coming up who need to embrace AI and understand, its depth and breadth and everything else about it and its ability, its capacity. How do we align the whole idea of AI and human behavior, human beings in our organization to continue to make them feel valued and a part of the journey?
The how to align, I'll come to. Just want to touch on something what you were saying about humans. So what I was saying now is I believe it's it's not a technological advance, it's a species advance. Okay, and again, I could be wrong. Who knows? But I'm going to give you some logic around why I believe that. Because if you look at people right now, okay, I've just lost my arm, it's gone. I'm going to get a prosthetic arm, right? Definitely, yeah, that's something I'm going to get put on. So if someone comes and offers me an AI robotic arm in the future, I'm going to take it. You tell me now, if you were told that you're going to die next week unless you have a replacement robotic heart, are you going to take it? Of course you're going to take it, yeah? They're doing head transplants already, for crying out loud, right? So I think what we're looking at is that a future of evolved humans. That's an evolved human. And what I call it is the hybrid human. We're going to have mechanical parts because that's what's going to happen, right? So we're going to have arms, we're going to have, new legs and whatever. And then eventually, and this isn't, you're talking many generations ahead, you're talking possibly brain transplants. And that's when I believe we'll evolve to be robotic. But it will just happen as a natural process. We won't be bothered about it.
We're talking about a future where, Terminators exist, right? But what about the here and now?
Yeah, exactly. So for the now, I think one of the things to do is just open your mind to the fact that your competitors are going to be doing this, okay? And that's the bit that's important, is the fact that if you have all these people in your organization under pressure, challenges or whatever, and they've got an option to go somewhere else that's forward thinking and that's allowing them a couple of hours to go and study a bit more understanding AI. Like, how many businesses don't use automation? I mean, you can automate absolutely everything. An incoming thing, like, I'm not even going to go into how many things there are, but you can go. So it's basically, this happens, make this happen, 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 contact this person, do this, do that, respond to that. If they come back to you, do this, do this, do that, do this, do that, do that. Like, how many people are not allowing that into their organization? So if you could allow that and then free up the time of the individual, don't just go and give them more to do. Free up and say, right, okay, like, we're going to take 2 hours a day, 2 hours a week, or whatever, of future thinking, future planning around AI, for example. What we'd love for you to do is come and give some ideas and some thoughts, because if you don't, your competitors will. And it doesn't matter how big you are. Look, Google's at threat of extinction. Google is at threat of extinction. Microsoft just invested $10 billion into ChatGPT, giving them a valuation of $20 billion. They didn't do that for fun, okay? They've done it because they're competing. Now, Google search engine won't exist in the future. Even Bing search engine won't exist. It's not how we'll search. So if they're at threat, right? Now let's look at another product that people love, Grammarly. Grammarly is one of those products that you just chuck everything in, it sorts all your grammar out for you, right? It's been a favourite product for many. Soon it won't be needed because people will be generating the content already Grammarly fixed. Now that's a big organisation that's just losing everything because they're not able to innovate. And if they don't innovate, they'll lose. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think innovation and the need for constantly growing, constantly be moving forward, constantly looking ahead and constantly being environmentally scanning is where we're at right now. And I think you're absolutely right. And whatever you're talking about the tech industry right there, in terms of the organizations are at risk, there's a level of risk for any other organization if we are not constantly moving forward. I want to thank you so much. You sort of blown my mind a bit, and probably the minds of some of the listeners. But hey, we've gone on a bit of a journey, really, around everything that you've been through, and talking about emotional resilience, and talking about understanding this could happen to anybody inside your organization, your team, your environment, to talking about what the future might look like, and the future probably will look like in terms of, computerization, technology, and of course, AI, and how we need to be aware of that. We cannot afford to be frightened of change. And I know that, a lot of people do shy away from change, and it's those that don't adapt that sometimes fail. And we've seen that many, many times with big organizations, haven't we, where they haven't adapted to the changing times of the world. Blockbusters is one that comes to mind. Woolworths is another that comes to mind. There's some big names out there that have fallen to the wayside.
This is the thing. This is one of the biggest learnings for me. I did not see this coming. It came quickly. I couldn't keep up with the technological advances. And the fact is, the main reason was I couldn't get the investment to get to that next level because I was too busy in a box dealing with all these other little issues. I couldn't get there. So, yes, it comes quickly. And I think that's the bit that we really need to stay focused on, is that it can come to anybody at any time.
Well, thank you so much for that. And on that point, I want to say thanks very much for joining us, Darren. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, folks. It's been a real thoughtful one, and it's really sort of got me now wondering about what the future might look like and how I need to adapt and be agile around that. Thanks very much. All the very best.